All right. Hey, Cindy, how are you? So we're back here for Deadly Roots, another episode. We're here with Cindy Bertrand Flores, and today last week we talked about presidents and finding out which U.S. presidents were related to people in the Mayflower and or related to serial killers as well, and that was kind of interesting. This week, because there's been so much in the news about assassination attempts. A couple months ago, Trump had an assassination attempt where they grazed his ear and, in a rally. And just this past weekend, there was another one. And they caught the guy. Fortunately, he didn't get any shots off. And so there's a lot of stuff going around, who knows what's going to happen in these last couple months before the election, but it's that fever pitch. So we thought it would be interesting to kind of dive in to U.S. presidential assassinations and assassination attempts, because people people think about them, and everyone knows the JFK one. Some people remember the Ronald Reagan one. Abraham Lincoln's a big one. And so it's been happening in our history, our country's history, for a long time. Andrew Jackson, he had an assassination attempt happen to him. So there's been a lot of presidents that people wanted to kill, for political reasons. And obviously, it's a screwed up world out there, and you can't really control people. And so that's what we're finding out. And there's all this, and everyone thinks that the rhetoric of today is really bad. If you go back and read some of the newspapers from when Lincoln was running for office and some of these other presidents, it was pretty brutal. And when they would do these rallies, it used to get very, very, very heated. So I think it's human nature. I think it's one of those things that happens, unfortunately, in other countries. I mean, recently in Mexico, they had an election there for president. And I think numerous people that were running for office there got eliminated, executed.
But it shouldn't happen in this country ever.
No,
it shouldn't happen anywhere, but it definitely shouldn't happen here. I mean, there's really no room for it here.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting to kind of look into that. And that's, when we spoke to Cindy and we say, listen, can you do a deep dive on these assassins and the attempted assassinations and see if there's any kind of correlation that matches up to what we were looking at last week with U.S. presidents and Mayflower pilgrims and or serial killers, because we're finding out there's a lot of connections here. So the task we gave you, Cindy, tell us a little about what the task we gave you, and just kind of walk us through what you started to learn while you were diving into this.
Sure. So after the assassination attempt on Trump with Thomas Crooks, I had already started building out his tree. So I was aware that he was related to certain other serial killers. And then with the recent one, I jumped on that. I was like, oh, let me look into this guy's tree now. The records for his tree lit up right away, no problems. And I was able to find his ancestors. A lot of easy to find records for that guy. I asked that because I don't follow politics or anything, that it had just happened. I said, what's the guy's name? This is before his name even came out. Somebody gave it to me and I was plugging it into the tree. And I knew exactly. I was like, that's the guy, North Carolina, born. I got his birthday in 1966. And that wanted to confirm. I said, can you tell me how old this guy was in North Carolina? Yeah, that's the guy. So he was already, I was already gung-ho on adding him. And then you would ask me to look into.
And the guy that we're talking about, just so everybody knows, Ryan Wesley Routh. That's his name.
Right. And then I found the fact that he's a Mayflower descendant, and that excited me. He descends from 5 Mayflower passengers.
Please, not me.
No, no, you're safe. Your Hawkins line is good. And then your husband had asked me to look into other assassins, attempted assassins.
Well, let's stick with him right now, and let's just talk about him. Let's talk about Ryan Wesley Routh, because he's in the news right now, and he's being, he was arraigned, I think, yesterday, and and they got him on a bunch of federal charges, and so let's talk about him. Because he also has a history too. He has a pretty long rap sheet apparently with law, and he had he barricaded himself in a house, and they had to get him out with SWAT. I mean, so he's got a lot of stuff going on.
Oh Lordy. So he's got 5 Mayflower passengers. So if you have the list in front of you of which killers he's related to, I found it very interesting. And you'll see if you look at the ones he's related to. So he descends from Isaac Allerton, DeGory Priest,
Wait, start over again. He descends from who?
Isaac Allerton,
Okay.
DeGory Priest,
Mm-hmm.
Francis Eaton, Winslow, I don't remember his first name, and then John Howland. But if you look, he's triple related to Israel Keys. He's double related to, if you look at the list, I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me. I think John Wayne Gacy.
Hold on, let me just pull this up.
Stephen Avery Brennan-Dassey, just off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, let's slow down here. All right, so do you want to get the list in front of you so you have it?
You can read off so he's related to on the Allerton line. Go ahead.
Allerton line. Okay, where's the Allerton line? Okay, so John Wayne Gacy, Dennis Rader, Israel Keys, also, oh no, that's the presidents, and Randy Kraft.
Right. And then if you go to the Priest line,
which is right here. So he's also again related to John Wayne Gacy, Dennis Rader, BTK, and Israel Keys. So he's doubly related to those killers.
3 to the 3. So, 3 guys, double related to the 2, and then triple related to Israel Keys. So he's also on the Eaton line, which as far as Eaton, Francis Eaton, I believe there's one killer that descends from Francis Eaton, and then the rest it's like beyond that. So, and then the Winslow and the Howland line. Let me see.
So wait, let's go back to Eaton for a second. It's not the grandfather Eaton, it's the son, right?
He descends from the Mayflower Eaton. Let me just pull him up 1 second.
Yeah, because we just have the grandfather.
Francis Eaton. Oh my eyes, the old lady eyes. Israel Keys. So that's the triple relation right there.
Yep.
So this guy who just attempted to kill Trump is related to Israel Keys 3 times. And Israel Keys was a really prolific serial killer.
Yes. And I like to plan it out like how this guy was at the event or whatever where Trump was golfing for 10 to 12 hours and staking it out. Israel Keys has a similar MO, I've heard, because I don't follow them, where he would go and stalk the person like a year before, leave stuff, and then come back. So
that's interesting.
An interesting correlation there.
That's a really interesting correlation because this guy supposedly was living in Hawaii, was from North Carolina, went to this golf course with a bunch of stuff, like had been there for 12 hours. Who knows if he had been there before then? Maybe he had been stalking that golf course for weeks. Who knows? Right. That's an interesting parallel between Israel Keys and him.
And then when he was discovered and the Secret Service bear down on him, I guess fired some shots, he just left everything and ran to his car. And if it wasn't for a bystander who had taken a picture of his car and his license plate, because apparently it was right up against the fence where he was at, and there was only like a little bit of a tree line. Then there was like some grass, and then there was a curb, and then there was the shoulder where people can park on. So he only had about 20 feet to run to his car. So there was other cars parked along there. And I think if that person didn't get his license plate or his car, he'd be still gone. He would have been gone.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Crazy. But the fact that other Israel Keys was a planner, and this guy was a planner.
And a stalker, like a Israel Keys used to watch his victims. That was one of his MOs.
Yeah. And apparently they were saying, news reports are saying that he spent time in Ukraine. He went over there for the war effort and wanted to fight. And they basically said he obviously wasn't fit to fight, and he didn't have any fighting experience, and he wasn't a trained soldier. And they kind of labeled him kind of a cuckoo. And so, and then they also reported him recently. I just found out they reported him to the U.S. government saying this guy, people in Ukraine, that you may want to watch out about this guy.
Really?
So, yeah. So obviously he was exhibiting some very strange behavior. Now all these interviews are coming out. He did an interview with Romanian TV or something, and you just listen to the guy, and he just sounds like a space cadet, someone who's very troubled and was but very politically motivated to what he wanted to do. So,
I don't know if there's any truth to that or not, but I'd heard he was in a BlackRock commercial, and I heard the same thing about That other guy,
Yeah.
Thomas Crooks.
Thomas Crooks. Thomas Crooks. Thomas Crooks. Well, they did identify Thomas Crooks. I also heard that this guy was in a black. We got to confirm that. I mean, there's videos flying around. I mean, there's so much. When this happens, I'm amazed at how much information, whether it's accurate information or just curated misinformation, that gets thrown out there. So it's really hard to tell.
We need to fact check that. We don't know for sure.
But Crooks was in a BlackRock video. That much we do know.
Yeah.
And but that's crazy. It's crazy. But that's interesting.
But also, like, Dennis Rader, look at some of these other killers that they're related to, like John Wayne Gacy and BTK also stalk their victims.
Very big planners.
Very big planners. Like, they were meticulous planners.
Right.
So
like BTK, I mean, he got a job as a city compliance officer in Kansas City, so he could go, or the town he was in, I can't remember, Wichita. Was it Wichita?
I think it was Wichita.
And so he could actually go door to door and basically go up and say, listen, your lawn is too long, or you don't have the right proper fencing. I need to inspect the house. So he would yes. So talk about that. And he would be taking notes, and then he would come back. And that's how that's
what Israel Keys does. I just find it like these groups that he's related to, it's like double, triple, you know what I mean? To people that are this same, have that same type of
personality.
Yeah, and Gacy too was a big planner as well. I mean, because he'd have to plan to, I mean, he was luring them into his house, bringing them back, and then killing them and torturing them and doing everything, horrible things to him. So you had 3 of very prolific planners and serial killers that this guy is related to, which I find is very interesting.
Well, again, it goes to that. Is that a genetic code? Is there a gene that just goes awry and turns these people into shift onto the other side? Like, that gene could maybe be used to be a surgeon, and it gets damaged somehow and turns into this. I mean, is there a way? I mean, I really want to talk to someone in that world who works with genetics and DNA, and to understand how it can mutate or change, and if there's a way to be able to predict these things, or their markers. I mean, because it's really interesting.
Definitely. Now, he's also on the Winslow line. I don't know, John, and he's also descends from John Howland. So on the Winslow line,
wait.
Say that again.
Start with the Winslow. Let's go Winslow.
Edward Winslow.
Yeah.
So Edward Kemper is on that line.
Edmund Kemper, yeah.
Edmund Kemper's on that line. He scares me. Edmund Kemper scares me.
Oh, wait, I heard what he did. Oh, shit. When he cut his mom's head off, and then he had sex with her bed.
He he killed his own grandparents, this guy. He scares me.
Yeah. And then he descends from John Howland. Now, he's the first to descend from John Howland. The other ones, the Bushes, and there's somebody else, descend from John Howland's father. You have it there?
Hold on. John
Alden?
No, Howland. Look at Howland. So John Howland, your list will have the father. It'll say Mayflower father. Howland.
Hold on.
Towards the bottom of the list.
Okay. Hold on. I don't have it.
Should have Howland.
I don't have Howland.
Okay, let me look it up. Howland, John Howland, but it's his dad. Howland, okay. So Ryan Routh, and then the father. Okay, so Richard, it's Ted Bundy, Jodi Arias, and the Bushes descend from John Howland's father. So this guy's related to Ted Bundy and Jodi Arias as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Okay, so Ryan Wesley Routh is related. Repeat that again.
Okay, so he's related to Ted Bundy and Jodi Arias through John Howland's father, and as well as the Bushes, Bush Jr. and Bush Sr.
Wow.
Oh, presidential connection. It just came to me. He's related to George Bush Jr., George Bush Sr.
Exactly.
Wow.
Because there's a couple of other of these guys who were related to some presidents as well, which is interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know if Ted Bundy was a planner. Jodi Arias, whatever.
Ted Bundy was a planner.
Yeah.
He was a stalker and a planner as well.
Yeah. And wait, Jodi Arias was a stalker too.
Well, Jodi Arias, I mean, I don't know if she was so much of a stalker. I mean, I know that she, the person that she brutally murdered was her boyfriend. So,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if that constitutes
Well,
that.
she was very like making it happen. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to convert to blah blah.
Very manipulative. Yeah. Determined.
So that, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
She was very zealous. And this guy seems like he was like that too.
Yeah, he didn't hide his contempt for Trump. I mean, it was all over. I mean, they actually, I saw an article where I guess Facebook shut down his Facebook page because of all the stuff that was on there. And I think the government has it now and they're going through it and they're, finding out what it is. But he made no bones about his contempt for Trump. And they even interviewed his son, who basically said that, his quote was, well, he hated Trump, as most people do. So it's like,
it doesn't mean you kill him.
Exactly.
Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean you kill him.
Don't vote for him.
Don't vote for him.
But he didn't vote for him. He did the first time.
No. But he had given money to Democratic parties before. I think he donated to the Biden campaign, and I don't know whether he donated to the Harris campaign. But that's the thing. I mean, you don't like somebody, you're going to vote for him. Don't vote for him.
Yeah, no one should die because they're running for.
But lately it's escalated with all these bomb throwing. I mean, they.
Well, let's not get into it.
It's crazy. But that will incite people that have the propensity to take this to the next level. And as we see, if they have like it running through their DNA,
right.
Who knows if this was the first time he tried to do this?
Well, the thing is, if you're going to camp out somewhere for 10 to 12 hours, this is not the first time you killed somebody. You're about to kill somebody. Something's wrong up in here that you think it's okay.
For 12 hours. Yeah.
So 100% he's killed before. I don't know if he was a mercenary or if he was in the military. I don't know.
I don't think he was in the military.
Oh, too crazy for that. But he had to have killed before. This is not the first time. There's no way.
You think so?
On a whim. You can't descend from these guys and sit in a bush for 10 to 12 hours planning out that you could, and he's already 55 years old. This is not the first time he killed somebody.
Well, either that or he just has propensity to kill. I mean, because the other person we're going to be talking about is Crooks. We don't know what he has done.
He was a young kid.
He was a young kid, so we don't know if he was left to his own devices and he didn't get caught, maybe he would have killed more people. But once again, he was just. But the interesting thing is you start getting into all these conspiracy theories about, how did they know what to do? How did they know where to go? You have Crooks was a young man, no military background.
Yeah, but video games,
but also he had he even got thrown out of his high school rifle club because he wasn't that good. He wasn't that good. So, but he did practice. So you have him, and then you have this guy. We're still learning a lot about this Ryan Wesley Routh. He didn't seem at all, according to all news reports, that he's not. He was laughing and joking when they caught him.
He's clearly nuts.
Yeah, and then or either that, he believes that he's doing something that's right. Right. I mean, because everybody's saying, every party's saying the other one's threat to democracy. It's like you get, it's obviously you got two people that have taken that to heart. And but who knows what we're going to find out?
Now, as far as Ryan Routh's tree, he has 4 of the 5 markers. Well, he's on the Mayflower, so he has 4 of the 5 markers. He's got he doesn't have the recent Europe. It's a little bit farther out. He's got a lot of German though. So the difference, because he's got southern roots, and then what happens is it's North Carolina, that area. I consider that to be southern roots for quite a stretch. And then apparently was settled by, and I find this a lot when I'm hitting North Carolina, which I now has on my radar, and they have an obelisk. I'm just saying. The people were in like Maryland, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania went down. That's what I'm finding. That's who settled North Carolina. I would expect when I'm in the southern parts, North Carolina, South Carolina, that I'm going to find their ancestors coming out of Virginia and settling there. But more often than not, I'm finding the northern connection. So but yeah, North Carolina's on my radar now. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like Kentucky. What's up with South Carolina or North Carolina?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No,
it's
it's
definitely
interesting. All right. Well, listen, I want to follow him more. So let's, as more information comes out, we could probably figure out what else is going on with him. But let's go to Thomas Crooks,
right.
because he looks like he's got a bevy of people that he's related to as well.
Yeah, he's probably related to the most, and he is related to John Hinckley, who tried to assassinate. Go ahead, tell everyone.
President Reagan.
Yeah.
So Thomas Crook.
No, didn't he try to assassinate 2 presidents or just that one?
No,
Just
it was Reagan.
Okay.
Who shot John Lennon?
Oh, that was
Lee Harvey Oswald.
No, that was Kennedy.
I don't know. I guess it seems like one of those. I don't know.
Yeah, hold on. We'll just take a pause for a minute. Mark David Chapman.
Okay. So Thomas Crook, who just attempted to kill Trump like a month ago, is also related to John Hinckley, the man who attempted to kill Ronald Reagan.
That's right.
Wow.
Well, they have that in common.
That's crazy. What are the odds of that?
And both of them connected with a bullet, and neither one of them killed a president.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Because Reagan survived, and so did, obviously, Trump survived.
Interesting.
Wow.
That's interesting.
All right. So Thomas Crooks is related to a lot of these people.
A lot of serial killers.
He's related to John Hinckley. He's also related to James D'Angelo.
James
Michael Bear Carson, Eileen Wuornos, Paul Bernardo, Keith Jesperson, Brian Kohberger from the Idaho murders, George Truffle.
He's a Mensa killer. It's called
George Truffle's a Manson killer. Diane Downs, Wade Wilson,
the Deadpool guy.
Henry Lee Lucas, David Carpenter, who they thought was a Zodiac killer for a minute, Dennis Rader.
Look, look, 2 of them are
both of them are related to Dennis Rader. So
hold on, say you guys are talking to each other.
So Thomas Crooks is related to Dennis Rader, and so is Ryan Wesley Routh.
And they both tried to shoot Trump.
So they're both related to each other distantly, obviously.
Oh my goodness.
Wayne Williams, Ward Weaver, and Dorothy Puente are all related to this Thomas Crooks kid.
Yeah, so he's got some bad blood.
Wow, that's a list. And those people
does Crooks have any Mayflower descendants?
Not that I found yet. I haven't fully finished his tree. This is what happens when there's like a ton of lines. It takes a long time. But I was back in there looking at it, but he is related to I texted it to you, a president.
Yes, I have it. Hold on.
Grover Cleveland.
Okay,
He's related to Grover Cleveland. So
over there.
But I mean, the chances are that he could be related to one of the Mayflower guys, because
Dennis Rader,
and then you have Ryan Wesley Routh. They're both related. So there may be some sort of.
It's definitely. I'm still working on it. I know he's got a lot of German. That's always the commonality with a lot of the killers, is that German tie. And so I'll continue, and we'll update if I find it. But obviously, I'll get excited.
The fact that him and John Hinckley are related is really interesting. You know, I don't know. I mean, for our listeners who don't remember President Reagan, I mean, you know, we actually just we saw the movie Reagan like a few weeks ago, and it's so weird. They start the movie off with him being, attempted, being assassinated, coming out of a rally or something like that, or he's speaking to people. And so it's just really interesting how some things in history parallel from the past to the present, and how people think that, oh yeah, this is the worst time. It's the worst time. It's like when you watch a movie like that and you see his whole presidency in a snapshot and what he went through and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of parallels of what's going on. And there was a lot of crazies back then.
So Reagan was shot at a rally.
Yes.
Trump was shot at a rally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And John
Well, he
Hinckley,
was already president. Reagan was already
yeah, he
president.
was already president. at the
But he
time.
was speaking to, I forget, to
One.
the AFCL, some
He was on
sort of
his
group
way into the car.
after he spoke.
Oh wow.
But
Okay.
John Hinckley, Thomas Crook are related is very, very interesting.
hmm And now John Hinckley is related to two assassins. So he's related to Thomas Crooks, but also Charles Guiteau, who tried to assassinate or whatever. Let me see. Who did he? He's on the list. Garfield. He had tried to assassinate Garfield, President Garfield.
President Garfield.
So Charles Guiteau tried to assassinate President Garfield,
Yeah.
and
he's
Hinckley is also related to him.
Yeah, let me find the circumstances of that because I thought that was interesting as well.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. And there's been a lot of presidential assassinations and attempts, more than
Here it is.
right there. Okay. All
So
right.
the assassination of James A. Garfield, the 20th president of the United States, began at the railroad station in Washington, D.C. 4 months after he took office, he was arriving at the train station, and Charles Guiteau shot him twice.
He was a writer and author.
Oh my.
Shot him with a 442 Wembley British Bulldog revolver.
Was Garfield a Democrat or a Republican?
I can't remember. But Garfield endured the pain, and it says, I'm trying to think. Having been shot before. All right, so Garfield endured the pain and suffering from having been shot before dying on September 19th.
So he did die from it.
Yes, it was lingering. It was complications
He survived for like a couple of months before he died.
because
Oh,
of
wow.
infections.
But I'm curious, was he a Democrat or a Republican? I don't know the answer.
Oh, hold on. Just click on this. What does it say there? House of Representatives.
Oh, he was Republican.
Republican.
And so is Trump, right? I don't know. I don't follow
Yeah.
politics for him.
Well, interesting is that both
AFK,
Trump,
right?
and here's another interesting coincidence. Both Trump and Reagan were both Democrats who switched parties.
Oh, okay. But then
So they-
JFK, wasn't he Republican?
No, JFK was a Democrat.
Democrat.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about that.
JFK was a Democrat.
All
And
right.
Lincoln?
So Lee Harvey Oswald, who was he related to?
So he's not related to any killers. He is, however, related to Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter. That is his only time. Most of his is recent Europe. He has only one line and only one ancestor, which is the Carter one. So the only person that he's actually related
Huh.
to was
But
Jimmy
that's
Carter.
interesting because there's so much speculation on whether or not Lee Harvey Oswald actually was the one who killed Kennedy.
Yeah. And I mean, based on his tree, I'm going to go no.
You're going to say no based on his tree?
I'm gonna go no based on his tree.
Well, we had some interesting information that relates to another podcast we're doing on the Alcatraz, and there's some connections to Oswald there too.
Really?
Yes, because there was because the gang the mob was involved. They believe the mob was involved in JFK's assassination. There's credible information based upon that, and both Jack Ruby, who ended up killing Lee Harvey Oswald when they were walking through, I think it was a police station or court, and it was on TV. It was all captured on live TV. Was apparently friends with Oswald, and according to documents and some witness statements from the Alcatraz book that we're going over, that they were both seen in Mexico beforehand, and so. And this Jack Ruby guy who killed Oswald was good friends with the main gangster, a guy named Mickey Cohen, at the time. So there's a lot of connections there. So, and I mean, there's so much information on that.
I just think it's really interesting that Lee Harvey Oswald has zero connections to any of the killers when these other people all do.
He has a Virginia tie, and it's all the way like one ancestor, like very, very slim line that has any kind of roots in the U.S. Everything else is like elsewhere, Germany, England, wherever, recent Europe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, his tree is interesting. Now, Charles Guiteau, he was born a long time ago. He is related to Hinckley. He also has a fair bit of, I would call it recent Europe, but this is like he was living a long time ago. So, obviously the Guiteau name is French. It's from France. But I thought it was going to be right away France. No, it was in Massachusetts, I believe, for quite a stretch for many generations. So I found that interesting.
That is interesting.
All right. So we were talking about Ryan Wesley Routh, and then we kind of got diverted. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and you started looking into, is Trump. So you started telling me a little bit about that, and we took a little break, and we're back here now. So let's talk a little bit about that.
All right. So Trump is German and Scottish, and he does have royal roots on his Scottish side. He descends from King John of Scotland, who descends from Robert the Bruce, who descends from Charlemagne.
Oh.
That means you're related to Trump.
Oh God.
What it makes him related to,
there's a lot of people related to Charlemagne.
I mean, yes. But they say there was that girl in 2009 who said all the presidents were related except for Van Buren. However, Van Buren does descend from Charlemagne as well. So that would make all the presidents related through Charlemagne. But I did see a video recently suggesting that girl was not right. It had something to do with that only 26 of the presidents actually have royal roots. So that's interesting. And I mean, I'm not about to dig into every president's tree going that far back.
Yeah.
So, but apparently this guy did the work and he's suggesting that it's only 26 of the presidents that have royal ties. And anyways, so, but if they were all related, they would all descend from Charlemagne.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting that they all relate to Charlemagne. And I'm related to Charlemagne on my father's side because through the French and Italian side. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
But proving this is the thing. So having royal lineage is not impossible. Finding it, proving lineage to it is a whole other ball of wax. Most people's trees do not, like most people cannot connect to their royal gateway ancestor with a proven lineage to royal ties. So the fact that if it were true that all the presidents have royal roots, they've all got traceable lines to royalty, which JFK is Irish. I don't know if you know Irish records are a bitch.
Actually, you know what? No, Irish wasn't bad. When we went to Ireland to get his passport, it wasn't bad. They have everything organized.
Very organized.
Unlike Italy.
And you dig through the church records.
You have to go through the church records.
Yeah, but all that stuff, they digitized everything because they knew that they were going to have to get people to come back to Ireland. And so they wanted people to repatriate back to Ireland. So everything's digitized. Whereas when she was doing her Italian passport, it was a mess. Yeah. Like we went to Ireland, we went to the town where my mother's family's from, a small town in Gort, which is just south of Galway. And it's a town that you would never drive through. There's no reason to drive through. And it's been there since the 6th century. And, I'm related to the whole town on both sides of my family there. Like, there was the Hawkins and then there was Linnaeans. And it was the Linnaean pub, and then across the street was the Hawkins dry goods store, and I was related to the whole town. It was crazy. But then we went to and I was related to pretty much everybody in the whole town. And we went to this one chapel on my mom's mother's side, and her maiden name, and we met this priest there, and he pulled out the baptismal records, which went back like 400 years, and all these beautiful handcrafted books and binders, and you went in there and it was like it looked like it was brand new. It didn't look old at all. They kept it so preserved, and you could see everybody's signatures, and so it was very detailed. I could see my whole family tree, going back to like literally the 1600s.
Really?
And then you see their signatures and all that stuff, and what date they were baptized, and so it's fascinating.
I think I should clarify. You went there and you found the records. Like for the Irish that came over during the potato famine, they went to Canada.
They changed. Yeah,
it's fine. He was from my ancestors, Wexford, Ireland. I don't know who his parents were. Who knows? If I were to go to Ireland and dig through the church records, but as far as that, you go back to the 1700s. That's where the records, there's a problem. When they all came over in mass droves, recently, Ellis Island kept decent records for the more recent. But yeah, if you go to Ireland, if you can find the
Oh
town.
yeah, like my mother's mother. I mean, she has a passport, and then some documents, her birth date is like off. Like one, it's different. The years are different. The days are different from her because she didn't have a birth certificate. Just a baptismal record, and then her passport. That's all you really had, and then any kind of like there was like health documents and stuff like that. They all had her birthday wrong, so she was probably lying about her age the whole time. Because I know for a fact that she was older than my grandfather, which back then, which was, I mean, back then you never ask a woman's age,
right?
But I'm sure she lied about it because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But
all right.
So getting back to these guys, these killers. So I saw that John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, is not related to anybody.
He's not. His parents were both born in England. Now his mother has the Holmes last name, Holmes. Holmes. You'd think H.H. Holmes, but H.H. Holmes is Herman Mudgett, so no. But there is a group of killers that have Holmes ancestors, Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I might have to dig a little further and go further back. There may be a connection on that Holmes line somewhere, but as it stands, he's not. He's got that right away. Parents were from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So then Reagan, he was related to, from what I can see here, he was related to Jackson.
No.
Wait.
No, that's a upper column.
Yeah.
So Reagan is just that John Hinckley tried to assassinate Reagan. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Richard Lawrence was born in England and he tried to assassinate Jackson.
Yeah.
President Jackson. And also, again, there's that England. So perhaps him and John Wilkes Booth maybe have a tie somewhere.
Yeah. And what's interesting is those guys like Richard Lawrence and the other one who Garfield's, they just walked right up to them and tried to shoot them. It was very personal. And it was like they were part of, it's crazy how all that happened.
Wow.
What about McKinley? Did you look up, you did look up McKinley, nothing from McKinley?
So that guy, Leon, I can't pronounce his last name. Leon.
Oh,
Leon. Oh, I can't pronounce it.
Solzgaz,
yeah.
Okay. So his parents were Polish, so no connection to anybody. So that guy tried to assassinate McKinley.
Mm-hmm.
And another one who was actually born in Germany was John Schrank. He tried to assassinate Teddy Roosevelt.
And there's no connection to any of the killers on the Mayflower tree.
And then you asked me about the one. Oh, I didn't write down who she tried to assassinate.
Squeaky Fromm. She tried to assassinate Gerald Ford.
Right, and a recent German. So now hers, I got all excited. I was like, oh, recent German right away. Had some Massachusetts. I was like, oh, this is a good one. But it was all recent. It was all recent German.
Yeah.
Only a couple generations worth of Massachusetts. But she was one of Charles Manson's.
Yes.
Lackeys.
I think she was. Yeah, she was part of
and
his.
As soon as I saw that German, I said, oh, I know how he was picking them. I'm sorry, but there's something with the German. I don't know.
Yes. And then we were talking a little bit about all of that stuff when we were, because I'm always fascinated about it. I still have to read this book that's based upon the MK Ultra, Manson. It's a book called The Chaos. I believe the author's name is Thomas O'Neill. And I really want to read that. And because I think there's a lot more information in there connected and anybody I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with MK Ultra, program that was designed by the CIA to use psychotropic and psychedelic drugs as a means to use it as truth serum to try to get people to talk. Mm-hmm. And so they did these experiments both on inmates and in federal prisons. And Charles Manson was in a federal prison at one point, and they experimented on him a lot. They also experimented in our other podcasts. Michael's escaped Alcatraz. One of the brothers was put in a federal prison along with Whitey Bulger, who's a Boston gangster, and they were both lab rats in that program as well. So
Eileen Warnock as well has claimed to be an MK Ultra participant.
She was
Am I
too.
wrong? Well, she says, I believe that's what she says in her things. And then, I mean, there's definitely something to that. And like I said, I believe that people perhaps were chosen based on their lineage, finding these connections, basically just activating the demons. You know what I mean? It would be quite easy to look at somebody's lineage and say, yeah, this is a good candidate for.
Do you think
You
that
know,
was the case, though? Or do you just think they just randomly they just had availability?
I do not think that it's random selection. No,
You don't
I
think?
don't think. No. Do we want to get into the MASONs? No, we get into that. Like, there are people chosen for reasons, and they already know. Like, especially the 3-letter agencies, they know a lot about you already. So I'm sure they've picked up on a person's lineage, because people ask me and say, "Oh, well, the FBI must be learning a lot from you about these killer connections." And I said, I'm sure they already know. you know.
I guess that's another interesting topic to go down there to go see. Like, one of the original leaders of the CIA, a guy named Dulles, the guy who was there for a long time. Curious to see if he has connection to Mayflower and or serial killers, because he was everyone, based upon, that's one of the reasons why they won't release the JFK files, because because people would be upset to find out that their own government killed JFK. And even JFK was in the last documentary that Oliver Stone did, there were some recordings and letters where he was talking to Bobby, and where he'd only been in office for a short period of time. And he was talking about how he discovered that he has no power whatsoever. They're not going to let him do anything. And that, they're probably going to try to kill him. And this is like early on in his presidency.
Right.
Who shot Bobby Kennedy?
But that was, they said it was Sirhan. And, but Robert Kennedy Jr. basically said he believes that it wasn't just him, and he doesn't believe that the shot that Sirhan fired off wasn't the bullet. They said there was another shooter there. He's convinced. In fact, Bobby Kennedy Jr. actually went and met with Sirhan and basically, to talk with him, because and I think it's amazing that he went and talked to his father's killer to try to find out, and then basically came out with his thought that he wasn't responsible for his father's killing, that someone else was. So, I mean, that whole thing, the whole Kennedy thing is just a huge, huge rabbit hole.
Oh, well, I think something similar happened with Thomas Crooks, right? I heard that there was another gunman. Some people who play with sound and audio record 3 different sounds of shots, like based on trajectory and all that, so that there was somebody else there, not just the guy who shot Thomas, but somebody else shooting towards Trump.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of theories. I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to find out the truth. I mean, there was videos that were posted online. I don't know how credible they are, but there was a huge water tower that was pretty close by, and there was video of someone saying that they saw someone up on the catwalk of that water tower. But to me, that whole thing stinks, because, I mean, the fact that he got that close on a top of a building when they were underneath him. They were directly underneath him.
They knew he was there. They talked to him 3 hours prior. The guy on the sniper on the roof had his snipe on.
You could see it in the footage. He's looking down. He looks up. He's looking down. He's looking up, and he's under.
And they told him to stand down. And he
exactly.
was like, "There's a guy with a gun on the roof," and they're like, "Stand down." So
anyway, all of it's bad. But it is interesting that these people are connected. That Thomas Crook and John Hinckley are related. Right. That to me is the big takeaway from today. That is very interesting. And is that a coincidence? I don't know. That's the thing we're talking about too. Like, why were some of these families on the Mayflower have so many descendants who became serial killers, like the Fuller line? Like, what is it with that family? Is it just twisted DNA that just got messed up? Or was it something else? Is it something else? We don't know. That's what we're going to dive into. We're going to find out more about that Fuller killer line.
Yeah. But just the amount of serial killers that both of these guys, these recent assassins, Thomas Crooks and John Hinckley, the fact that they're related to so many and like, these are bad. I mean, all serial killers are bad. These are some pretty badass ones. You know, you have, and really kind of like, you know, Michael Bear Carson, who we know his daughter, and we were developing something for her. And I mean, he was a smart man. These were, you know, Brian
He was,
Koberger
he
too.
was a mission killer, though, right? So,
He was a what?
It was a what?
mission killer. My brother told me.
A what?
Somebody, a mission killer, somebody who
Oh,
believes they're
yes.
accomplishing, like, trying to rid the world of something.
Right.
Yes.
Similar to what
Thomas Crooks.
right. Trying to rid the world, like he's
Or
doing
John
with the-
Hinckley. Yeah, trying to rid the world of.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he defended himself in court. That's how, you know, he was just like, and basically took over the courtroom. Apparently.
Michael Carson. Yeah, he was a very intelligent man, and sad that was the turn he took.
Yeah.
But look at Brian Koberger too. He was studying forensic criminology and psychology.
Well, there's definitely a lot of smart guys that Thomas Crooks is related to, and I knew that right away. I believe they said he was extra smart.
Yeah. Dennis Rader too.
Yeah. So
that's my point. Like, how does it go from being super smart genius to psychotic serial killer? What is the bridge?
And isn't Thomas Crooks related to George Chappelle?
Yeah.
Also a genius. The Mensa murder, because he was a genius.
Yeah.
So it's interesting who he's related to.
Yeah.
And then two women. He's got Diane Downs and Eileen Wuornos. And Dorothy Puente, 3.
3 women, yeah. That's
3
crazy.
women. Yeah.
All right. Well, another very interesting week, Cindy. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff here. I mean, I think that we're still working on this pattern of the clusters of killers because it's so much. There's so much. Like, we have to just kind of unravel it one at a time, I think. One line at a time. We'll start with the fuller line. So we're going to be working on that.
The pattern's the key. So, I'll do a TikTok, referencing, well, this killer's related to these, and they said these Mayflower, well, because I'm a Mayflower descendant, does that mean that I'm a killer? I'm like, it's not like that. It's not what it means. There's a very specific pattern to these killers' trees and who they are related to. There is something in the DNA. Obviously, if they're new to my channel on TikTok, they have no idea what I'm talking about, but there's definitely something to it. It's nothing to be ignored. So.
Yeah, I mean, just having all these names. I mean, when we started this off and just seeing all the names of the serial killers that are related to descendants of the Mayflower, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a coincidence. It just seems, and to me, if you really look at DNA is not coincidence. It's chemistry.
Yeah.
It's biology. It's all this.
And then it's like, does DNA, like we've talked about before. So my mother's side is the Mayflower side and the Hopkins side, which is related. I mean, there's several, not that many serial killers on the Hopkins line, but there's a few.
There's like 7.
I don't know, whatever. And then that's my mother's mother, my grandmother. And then my mother's father, his family was related to the House of Christ.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's like, I don't know. Is there something to that? They traced my grandfather's last name all the way back to the house of Joseph.
Wow.
The father of Jesus.
Yeah.
So what is the deal? Is it demon, good, evil, light, dark? I mean, I know I'm, whatever, but I'm a light for dark people to come at. But I don't know. Is there something to that?
Definitely.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see, like, how this Fuller family has so many. Why that one specific family? What is the history of that family?
Right. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what's really interesting is that these 2 guys just recently, within the last 2 months, 2 people, anonymous people that we knew nothing about, have now become world famous and world infamous, I should say. And they both tried to kill the president.
And they're related.
Or tried to kill Trump.
Yeah.
And they're related. And not only are they related, that they're related to significant serial killers. I mean, like, what are the odds of that? And they're both, it's just strange.
It is. It's very weird.
It, like, when I tasked you with this, I didn't think it was going to come up like this. I was just like, let's see what they're. It's like literally a pinball machine,
Let's
right?
see what happens.
It's like a slot machine. You hit the slot machine. Let's see who you're related to.
Yeah.
Really
Right.
crazy.
Mhm.
But anyway, all right. Well, listen. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week. We'll figure out what we're gonna correlate next. Maybe something's going to happen in the world that we'll have to spin off of. But
Right.
I thought it would be interesting, especially with everything in the topics right now. You know, with these two names, and who knows what we're going to find more about this Ryan Wesley Routh. You know, I mean, who knows?
Mhm.
You know. All right. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, Cindy.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.